Life for 10,000 years. The 5 billionaires simultaneously descended upon the working-class district. I'm going to visit a financially struggling 20-year-old boy. Just because he was a poor boy, he became their master 50 years ago. Initially, the wealthy only learned a little from Su Yi, and they have already become tycoons in various fields. Sure, when they see Su Yi again, I was surprised by how young he looked. Just because they don't know, Su Yi has already lived for 100,000 years. Not only did he establish Taoism, but also Buddhism. Even Emperor Qin Shi Huang was once defeated by his subordinates. Until 50 years ago, the wealthy were dismissed and then fell asleep. And now, the awakened Su no longer wants to change the world, but just wants to be an ordinary person and experience life. When he is dressed in a black gown, walking in the Shijian mountains. However, it attracted the attention of countless tourists, who exclaimed, "Is there a film crew on the mountain? Is this person here to shoot a movie? But this person looks so handsome. I wonder what he is acting in." The crowd looked at Su Yi and couldn't help but whisper to each other. "So, I used to live on this Shijian mountain. Before falling asleep, I once instructed the people around me, disperse. Only the butler at home, if he is still alive, is very likely still guarding the house." As Su Yi continued on his journey, he also heard the whispers of many tourists and pedestrians. After learning that there is still an immortal living on the mountain, who is proficient in fortune-telling and martial arts, Su Yi couldn't help shaking his head. Everyone who followed him has gained something. The steward back then learned some tricks of fortune-telling and such from Chang Feng, who was by his side. Nowadays, unexpectedly being revered as a deity, Jiang Changfeng's wisdom is now known to everyone. Anyone who can receive guidance and advice will surely achieve great success. The most important thing is that he has close relationships with domestic digital giants, as well as trusted partners and friends. Every festive occasion, luxury cars parade the streets below the mountain. The people who come to pay their respects are all truly powerful and influential figures. Even the richest person in the country would not dare to disrespect him. When Su Yi arrived at the mountaintop, he could see his former residence from afar. After 50 years have passed, it remains unchanged, which should be attributed to good cultivation. And there are basically no tourists here. Because there are security guards standing everywhere outside the house, about 100 meters away, to prevent anyone from trespassing. The entire house is protected tightly, indeed. There are many people who want to meet Jiang Changfeng, but they can only wait from a distance. Upon entering the ancient mansion of Su Yiqiao, I took a few steps and immediately a security guard approached me. "Pardon me, what do you wish to accomplish?" Here, the security guard's responsibility is to intercept those who are not relevant. After all, Jiang Changfeng is not someone that just anyone can meet. Su Yi hasn't spoken yet. Two wealthy second-generation individuals sitting nearby couldn't help but laugh. "Oh dear, this boy's outfit is quite flamboyant. Does he really think he can meet Mr. Jiang dressed like this?" Even if you are the richest person in the Lin family, you still need to send someone with a letter of introduction a week in advance to gain entry. This guy, I don't know where he came from. I contacted Su Yi and she casually glanced at the figures of those two young individuals. As their eyes met with Su Yi, these two individuals involuntarily closed their eyes. Deep inside their hearts, for some unknown reason, they were filled with fear. Just a single glance made these two fearless rich second generations tremble all over. The security guard seems to have noticed something unusual. He looks at Su Yihao with vigilance and says, "This is not the place you should be. Leave quickly, or I'll be forced to take action." Su Yi paid no attention to him, because at that moment, Jiang Changfeng had already realized that he had come back. The door of the ancient mansion creaked open, and an elderly man with silver hair, hunched over, emerged. Originally, the people who were waiting on the side for an opportunity all exploded. "Zhang, Mr. Lao, you're coming out. Could it be that you want to see me, sir?" "Don't speak, it disturbs the gentleman, but the offense is significant." At the mountaintop, the people waiting anxiously gazed at the approaching strong wind. All the security guards in front of Su Yi quickly stood up respectfully. Only Su Yi stood still, facing Jiang Changfeng from a distance. On Jiang Changfeng's face, there are already numerous traces of the weight of time, deeply etched onto his face. Upon seeing Su Yi at this moment, the Chao Su, who has been enduring the long wind without sleep, shed tears uncontrollably and walked unsteadily. "So, let's take big steps forward as well." He applied for the security job and wanted to keep it a secret. In the next moment, Su Yi had already appeared in front of Jiang Changfeng. The people around me have blank minds, as if time was distorted for a night, and they have no recollection of how Su Yi passed by. What's going on? What? Let that kid go, quickly stop him. If he disturbs Mr. Zhang, let's see how you handle it. The Luoan people have gone crazy. They have been entrusted with a great burden to protect Jiang Changfeng. But now, an unknown young man suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Changfeng, right in front of them. If anything unexpected were to happen to Jiang Changfeng, none of them would have a good outcome. When the security guards rushed forward, Sausage Feng immediately extended his hand and shouted in a commanding voice, "Hey, all of you, give way. Step back. In 1 minute, everyone must leave." Jiang Changfeng trembled all over. These people almost offended Su. The security guards dared not disobey Jiang Changfeng's orders and quickly prepared to withdraw, driving away everyone on the mountaintop. As the strong wind blew, I looked up at Su Yi, my knees slightly bent, about to kneel down. Su Yun grabbed his hand and whispered, "Come in, we'll talk inside." What's going on? Is there something wrong with my eyes? Mr. Hong seems to be treating that young man with a lot of respect. Everyone couldn't believe what they were seeing. Jiang Changfeng, who was like a master, was actually bowing his head and following behind that young man like a servant. What is the identity of this young man? Those who were ordered to protect Jiang Changfeng turned around. I immediately reported everything I saw to my party. Are you asking if the eccentric young man looks very young? My lord, you're back. Yes, my lord has returned, and he is indeed alive, and even younger looking. Those who had once followed Su Yi were all stunned after receiving the message from their subordinates. Everyone has different thoughts, some are shocked, some are excited, and some are afraid. Some people have come up with unique ideas. Sure, Su Yi. The current state of the world is quite complex. There are various challenges and changes happening globally. Economically, there is a growing disparity between the rich and the poor. Politically, there is a rise in populism and nationalism in many countries. Technologically, advancements in artificial intelligence and automation are reshaping industries and the job market. Additionally, environmental issues such as climate change are becoming increasingly urgent. Overall, it is a time of great uncertainty and rapid transformation. Jiang Changfeng stood in front of Su Yi, his eyes still red and teary. Master, the world has indeed become better nowadays, and technology has advanced rapidly. Specifically, as for me, I have not left the mountain in these years, so I am not very aware of the details. How about I summon Xiao Zhao and the others to come and speak to you about it? Su Yi shook his head and said with a smile, no need. I left that place years ago, and they are no longer my subordinates. They are all old and elderly now. Do I still need them to bow and scrape before me? Su Yi has lived for so many years, and what he understands the most is human nature. The servants back then all received some benefits from him. Those things that seemed insignificant to him were enough to make them influential in this world. 50 years later, those servants still have to come and serve him. Jiang Changfeng, upon hearing these words, was so scared that he quickly knelt down in front of Su Yi. My lord, as long as I am alive, I will always be your servant. Su Yi said, you don't have to be so nervous. You've put in a lot of effort over the years. As for Xiao Zhao, if they are meant to be, they will meet again. Destiny comes and goes, Su Yi will never force it. My lord, where do you plan to go next? This humble servant wishes to continue following you. Left and right. Jiang Changfeng slowly stood up, his eyes filled with determination. He had waited for half a lifetime, and now that Su Yi had returned, he naturally wanted to continue following him. Foreigners referred to him as a leader and placed their trust in him. Jiang Changfeng, however, knew that in this world, the only one who could truly become an immortal was his wife. Never mind, your remaining days are limited. Just concentrate on being true to yourself. I shook my head in response. By the way, in today's world, at my age, what should I be doing? Sir, at your age, you should still be studying while being outside. Su nodded in agreement, saying, that's right, so he looks very young now, with an appearance of only being in his 20s. So you must still be studying at university. Jiang Changfeng understood Su Li's meaning and said, Master, I will have someone arrange a new identity for you. Su Li nodded and then looked towards the door. Jiang Changsong didn't dare to disturb him. He stood silently by his side, just like 50 years ago. Just then, the door of the old house was suddenly kicked open by someone. A young man full of hostility walked in, followed by a group of men in suits. I recognized Chang Feng, and he was none other than the grandson of Su Yi's former chef. My lord, I don't want to waste any more words with you today. Either you die on your own, or I'll have someone do it for you. Tang Jincheng looked arrogantly at Jiang Chang. Jiang Changfeng's face turned pale. What he feared was not Tang Jincheng, but the possibility of disturbing Su. Me, Grandpa, I'm giving you face, but last night, he left us. He was also a veteran of the Red Army. Our family's 3 generations have built up our genes, but what do they say? They say that someday someone will come back and entrust the entire industry to you to manage. But you are almost at the end of your life. Can you handle those industries? Tang Jincheng said disdainfully. Looking at the arrogant Tang Jincheng in front of her, she calmly asked, is he Tang Wen's grandson? The wind trembled all over, and he knelt directly at the Su Yi Hotel. Tang Wen, the granddaughter that Sun Zi wants, did such a rebellious and immoral thing. If Su Yi were to vent his anger, the consequences for others would be unimaginable. Others may not know Su Yi's true strength, but Jiang Chaofeng has glimpsed a small part of his iceberg-like power. Even Su Yi's unintentional display of power is already something that people like them cannot confront. Tang Jinchen also noticed Su Jian, Zhang, and Chaofeng kneeling in front of Su Li, and calling her, Madam. He laughed loudly, haha. Mr. Zhang, stop pretending and playing tricks here. Are you trying to tell me that this guy is the person my grandfather mentioned? Ha ha ha, it's ridiculous. If he really is someone from 50 years ago, he would be buried in the ground by now. Su Yi did not pay attention to Tang Jinchao, but instead asked, by the way, does the Tang family have any other heirs? Jiang Chaofeng cautiously said, Tang Julin's son passed away 10 years ago. Besides Tang Jincheng, the Tang family also has a daughter. Su Yi slowly stood up and said, as long as there are descendants, it will be fine. Jiang Chaofeng instantly understood Su Yi's meaning, which was expressing concern that Tang Jincheng might be sentenced to death. What are you babbling about? First, interrupt that guy's leg to make him understand what attitude he should have. Absolutely. Young master. Speak up. Tang Jincheng impatiently interrupted, not there yet. Mr. Tang, the group of people under Tang Jincheng's command are all fugitive women, and each of them possesses extraordinary skills. Killing someone with half a body and an old man is a piece of cake for them, not to mention a young inexperienced person. A burly man. Ling smiled and reached for Su Yi's neck. I will send a pair of billionaires to follow you, even implying the idea of taking action. And that hand, when it was about to touch Sui, stopped, as if it had been visualized, motionless. Su Yi took a step forward. Just now, the person who was telling the truth suddenly turned into a black smoke and dispersed, leaving no trace, not even a single hair. Upon witnessing this scene, Tang Jincheng's pupils suddenly contracted, his eyes filled with extreme horror, causing him to repeatedly step back in fear. His followers were also in an uproar. They did not see Su Yi make a move, but the person who first attacked Su Yi did not even leave a corpse behind. It must be an optical illusion. Bring him in and kill him. Tang Jincheng panicked, but reluctantly gave the order. The group of black-clad individuals roared angrily and pounced towards Su Yi. Su Yi's expression was indifferent as she glanced at the group of apes. Several experts, all turned into black smoke, dissipated into the air. What kind of person are you, exactly? Tang Jincheng pulled out a handgun. Paper. Su. This sentence is not clear and seems to contain some errors. Can you please provide more context or clarify the sentence? Su Yi then looked at him expressionlessly and said, out of respect for your father, I'll give you a word, leave. Upon hearing these words, Tang Jincheng exclaimed excitedly, fantastic. However, the bullet strangely passed through Tang Jincheng's WeChat, and a snowflake shot out from the back of her head. The old house. Thousands. 10 pairs of eyes staring at the old house, Tang Jincheng brought people, forcibly entered the river, and stayed overnight in Chongfeng. This news spread out, it is no different from a seismic event of magnitude 10. Tang Jincheng, he laid hands on Mr. Zhang. 太嚣张了，这是要干什么? You're being too arrogant. What are you trying to do? Hurry! Report to the master that Tang Jincheng has fired a gun. The news of Tang Jincheng's shooting of General Changfeng quickly spread throughout the entire land of China, shocking countless big shots, but also arousing their curiosity. Tang family, are you trying to rebel? From today onwards, my Ling family and the Tang family are at odds. Upon hearing this news, the influential figure in the business world was furious and immediately ordered his subordinates to take action against the Tang family. Jiang Changfeng was really killed by Tang Jincheng. If that's the case, the whole world's situation might undergo some changes. The one saying this is also a big shot in the underground world, holding a glass of red wine, with a strange expression on his face. In the mansion, 5 elderly men in their 50s gathered together. These 5 individuals, who almost possessed 30% of the wealth in China, were all once servants of Su Yi. Now, they have become influential figures in their own right. Did you say that the master has returned? I'm not sure. Tang Jincheng, he fired the gun this time. There was an old man dressed in Tang Dynasty clothing, with a complicated expression, but he didn't dare to say what happened next. Lao Yu, what do you mean by this? Back then, we all said that if the master really came back, we would still be his servants. As a servant, generation after generation serving. I may not have many years left, but my son, my grandson, why should they? When Su Yi returns, I will offer everything, everything. Just wait a little longer. The news I received is that Tang Jincheng fired a gun, but I did not see Jiang Changfeng and his body. Su Yi walked out of the house, looking outside and observing the surroundings. The people following behind didn't try to stop them. Tang Jie, this doesn't necessarily mean anything, Su Yi commented. Even if we have the resources, we still have reservations. I understand this principle. Tell them that tomorrow, I'll be waiting for them on Wutong Street. So, after saying that, a figure appeared, and in the next second, the sword master had already disappeared through the door. How did he walk? Amazing. He's truly a deity. Quick! Report to the master of the house. Block the news. The people sent by various big shots have already taken action. As for Wutong Street, it used to be Su Yi's previous residence. At this moment, he arrived here wearing modern attire, gazing at a Wutong tree in the courtyard, lost in contemplation. Before his death, this phoenix tree was planted by him 500 years ago, together with his wife at that time. Throughout the ages, even emperors and generals dare not touch this one. Just as he was about to touch the plane tree. But he was stopped by a drunkard. Hey kid, who are you looking for? Su Yi was surprised to find someone there and asked, is Chen Qifeng still here? Chen Qifeng, mentioned by Su Yi, was the person who had kept his promise 50 years ago. I have nothing to do, so I went somewhere else. Therefore, Han Tai raised his eyelids, looked at Su Yi, and also made a move. I would like to buy this place, make me an offer. Su Yi smiled. The drunkard slowly got up, squinted his eyes, and looked up and down carefully. Finally, I couldn't help but chuckle and say, young man, do you know how much this place costs? At least 50 million. Let me tell you, young man. Su Yi ignored him and sat down on the stone bench under the phoenix tree. He didn't have any money on him, but he believed that someone would come to give him money soon. Your mother, I'm giving you face. The drunk man mumbled and stood up. But perhaps due to the hangover and not having washed up, upon getting up, my foot hit a standing object and I stumbled, falling into a pile of old bottles, looking disheveled and embarrassed. Su Yilian didn't even look at him. Outside the courtyard, the sound of cars roaring could be heard, and only one car stopped at the electronic entrance gate. 5 people got off the car. As for their bodyguards, they are all stationed at various intersections of the street, not allowing anyone to approach this mansion. If those wealthy people living in high society were to see these 5 individuals appearing in front of an old courtyard like this, they would probably be too scared to say a word. The first elderly person to emerge is named Yu Buin. Nowadays, he has a dominant position in the development of new energy projects worldwide. Even foreign heads of state treat him with respect when they meet him. When he looked at the phoenix tree in the courtyard, he couldn't help but shudder. Yesterday, when Tang Jincheng caused the scene at the old mansion, they didn't do anything. Now, coming to see Su Li, how could they not feel anxious? If Su Yi suspects them of being disloyal, how should they handle it? The remaining 4 people, after getting off the car, also looked at each other nervously and uneasily. In theory, considering their current identities, they shouldn't be afraid of anyone, but Su Yi was different. They used to follow Su Yi closely, but each of them only learned a little bit, and that's how they achieved their success today. During the years when Su Yi went missing, they also searched everywhere for information about Su Yi. In the end, they made astonishing discoveries through some historical records. They discovered that Su Yi seemed to have lived for thousands of years, and traces left by Su Yi could be found in many dynasties. A generation has its own saint like Hua Tuo, who once left a book to pay tribute to his teacher. In the treasured collection of the calligraphic master Wang Shiji, there is a volume dedicated to his youthful inspiration from a young man. And now, in his old age, that young man remains youthful and unchanged, still full of vitality. Even in the ancient oracle bone inscriptions, a trace of description about that ageless youth can be found. All of it made Yu Guan and his team think. A shadow of gloom flickered in Guan's eyes as he took the lead and walked towards the courtyard. Furthermore, the 4 elders were not there either. Amused, I followed Yu Guan and walked in. Except for that drunken man who fell to the ground and cursed. They saw a teenager named Su Yi slowly turn around and look at them. At that moment, the hearts of Yu Guan and the others were pounding in their throats. Although Su Yu changed her clothes and hairstyle, that unique temperament and gaze remained unchanged. What are you old folks doing coming to my house? At that moment, the drunkard got up, grabbed a bottle, and pointed it at Yu Guan. Yu Guan's face changed dramatically. It has been so many years, and no one has dared to speak to him like this. At this moment, he was filled with a desire to kill. But in that moment, Su Yi sitting next to them shouted to stop. He is now the owner of this house. I'm planning to buy his house for 50 million. Who among you is interested? Hey kid, you're careless. Who are they? These old guys, they can come up with 50 million. The drunkard simply doesn't believe that someone in this ordinary neighborhood could have so much money. Master, I've got it. Yu Guan took a step forward and took out a 50 million yuan check from his pocket. The drunkard took the check, sneered, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it in Yu Guan's face, saying, "You motherfucker, trying to fool me. I want cash." At this moment, Guan's face was about to explode with anger. In his entire life, it was the first time someone dared to throw something at his face. Su Yi said expressionlessly, "Give it to him now." My lord, Yu Guan. I dare not disobey Su Yi's command, and I bow my head to Su. Ah, I understand now. You are shooting a movie here, playing the role of an old master. The drunkard finds it hilarious that an elderly person in their 70s or 80s would call a young person old. Besides filming a movie, he can't think of any other explanation. 10 minutes later, the person from Goen had already carried 50 million yuan in cash and walked into the courtyard. You go get the money. So, dealing with drunks isn't too bad. A drunken man stumbled over, half doubting, and when he saw that the box was filled with bright red banknotes, it almost made him question the meaning of life. However, damn it, you guys really bought it. All this money, it's mine. It's all because of you. Yu Guan, today, can be considered fortunate. Originally, when Su Yi came in, his heart was already very nervous, and now he unexpectedly has to deal with this drunkard. After Yu Guan finished everything, he walked unsteadily towards Su Yi. My lord, where have you been all these years? Yesterday, I heard that young Tang from the Tang family was disrespectful towards you, so I immediately went up the mountain. But when I arrived, my lord, you had already left. I thought, my lord, that you didn't want to see us. With a smile on his face, Su looked at Yugu Temple. Yesterday, there were some restless subordinates on the mountain, but those people didn't take any action. Upon seeing Su Yi, Guan felt that she had a deep understanding of him, as if she could see through all of his thoughts. Today I called you here, and there are no other clothes. It's just a game between master and servant. Now you have been dismissed. Just now, you bought this residence for me. We are even now, and I won't ask for anything else from you. So you don't have to worry anymore. News. The expressions on the faces of Yu Guan and others drastically changed, and they all knelt down before Su Yi. Master, everything we have now is bestowed upon us. With just a word from you, we can all say to you, Master, I will always be yours. The elder dressed in Tang Dynasty clothing exclaimed excitedly. He is a renowned medical master in Huaxia, and many people call him the god of modern Huaxia. But he was well aware that he had only learned some superficial knowledge from Su Yi back then. Now, Yiling owns dozens of pharmaceutical companies and his wealth has long surpassed billions. Yiling said so. The remaining 4 people can only follow their father. They still cannot see through Su Yi's intentions until now. In fact, the more they understand him, the more they feel that Su Yi is unfathomable. Otherwise, they would have already had Su Yi killed by now. Su Yi, I'm overwhelmed. There is no feast that doesn't come to an end. Give me what I want and from now on, don't come looking for me anymore. I don't want to see you again. Su Goen, suppressing his inner excitement, asked, what exactly are you referring to when you mention the things you want? He is now rich enough to rival a country. If Su Yi really wants a word from him, she can only bring back his instrument. In that case, he will have no choice but to fight to the death with Su Yi. But when Su Yi said this, he relaxed his grip. Identification card, still needed. I want to study and understand this new era, so I can capture every subtle expression on people's faces. What they are thinking, in fact, he can also guess. Don't worry about anything else, I don't want to be bothered. If we happen to run into each other outside, just pretend you don't know me. There's no need for any further explanation. No matter how powerful they are, in front of Su Yi, they are still just servants kneeling at her feet. After understanding the context and correcting the typo, the sentence should be 于国安等人齐其一目。既然这是苏一自己的意思，那就不存在他们背叛。The corrected sentence would be Yu Guan and others all responded angrily. Since this was Su Yi's own intention, there is no betrayal on their part. This is? Yiling asked cautiously. Sir, are you familiar with this era now? Su Yi just smiled. He had been asleep for 50 years, so it's impossible for him to be familiar. Since you need someone to take care of you, I can have my children at home accompany you to school and keep you company. Others may fear Su Yi and even want to get rid of him, but Yiling is different. While others cannot see the benefits of being with Su Yi, Yiling can. These old guys have no idea. On the side, Yu Guan and Lima regained their composure and said, Sir, what Yiling said is right. You may not know yet, but times have changed. There are funds and many things that cannot be learned just in school. I have a granddaughter who is also 18 years old. Just turn around and give me your ID card, then you can all disperse. Su Yi's face turned cold. He didn't want to say much to them, so he turned around and walked in. The 5 old men looked at each other and shook their heads in the end. Afterwards, Guan shouted loudly, Master, the servants are taking their leave. After speaking, the 5 individuals knelt down and kowtowed 3 times towards the door, expressing their willingness to serve as loyal subjects. After Su Yi entered the house, he began to slowly tidy up the room, preparing to start his new life. Starting from scratch again, he has experienced this kind of thing too many times. Thinking back, every era used to be similar, but now they have become diverse, which he finds interesting. Living for too long, what he dislikes the most is a monotonous life. In the evening, Su Yi went out to look for a job because he at least knew a little bit. Lu Shu's study time was during the day, so if he wanted to study and work at the same time, he had to find a job that operated at night. So, he found a bar called Loda, and they are hiring waiters like you here. The receptionist girl sized up Su Ilyoung and asked him, Are you really listening? Wait a moment, let me call the manager. Very soon, a man in a suit approached and asked, Are you an adult now? Crispy. It falls down with just a little touch, nodding. It seems like you are applying for a waiter position, right? The salary is 1,800 yuan, with half a month's salary withheld as a deposit. If you decide to take the job, please make a photocopy of your ID card and give it to me. Manager. Also, I must say that Su Yi has a great temperament. Maybe those wealthy ladies in the factory will like him. So, after listening, I got confused and thought, should I come over tomorrow? As for him, he only just realized that he is completely incapable of doing things like photocopying. If no one teaches him, he seems like a fool. The next morning, Su Yi was resting with his eyes closed on the chair when he was suddenly awakened by a voice. Are you Su Yi?